Hello and welcome. Today, I'm going to be discussing the PC exclusive Uber rares from the Yahoo version of the Battle Cats, Mina de Nyanko Daisensu, or Battle Cats with Everyone, which has been discontinued since January 31st, 2019, so it's no longer available to play. Most sets in this version had a special VIP Uber rare variant of a set that included a special Uber. This video is part 2 of the PC Uber analysis, so if you haven't seen part 1, check the card in the corner here where I go more into detail about stack calculations and the unique PvP feature present in this version. One last note, when I compare these units with other units, legendaries are not considered and I will be putting them in the context of version 11.7. With this section done, we can actually get on to the video. Shiro is the VIP Uber from the Dark Hero set. Like all Dark Heroes units, her role changes depending on her form, and with exceptions, most of the stats stay exactly the same across all forms. Shiro is the more defensive-oriented form with the 50% chance to knock back aliens while being immune to waves. If you watched my previous video, then you would understand why knockback against aliens is horrible. She is also pretty frail, and her DPS isn't all that great. Even as a wave immune unit, she gets almost outclassed by Musashi, who in itself gets outclassed by Talented Dancer 90% of the time. Before then, she's a decent wave immune unit since she outranges most wave attackers. Her speed is also pretty good, being one of her major advantages over most anti-wave units, since they're pretty slow and she can get to the front lines faster than usual. Swallowtail is the more offensive form. She goes from knockback and wave immunity to a 100% chance to slow for 3.6 seconds and a 50% chance for a level 3 wave. Slow is a great ability to grind enemies to a halt, and her wave can allow her to slow aliens that she can't hit. Unfortunately, like with her previous form, she still has a pretty bad DPS. She would still be a decent wave attacker if the wave was guaranteed, but it isn't, meaning that she fails as a wave attacker. I would still argue that this is the better form because slow is a lot less harmful than knockback. Battle God Odin is from the Almighty set and is a prominent figure in Upper European and Norse mythology. You can think of Odin as the defensive version of Amaterasu. For traits that have a fruit treasure, Odin has 272,000 health and 217,600 health against fruitless traits with a guaranteed knockback while also being immune to knockbacks himself. Odin, as a tanker unit, has a pretty good amount of DPS, boasting 7,330.6 DPS. Odin can fit into many teams since his ability to stall most enemies is a powerful asset your team could use. His DPS is higher than Awakened Ururan's, who already has a great DPS. His recharge is also around 40 seconds faster. Odin's range of 445 makes him comparable to Bahamut, who, while not having even half of his raw damage, boasts 1.7 times the DPS. I personally think Odin has been the best unit discussed so far due to his ability to be a great general attacker that provides a great defensive utility on traded stages and even has a comparatively good DPS against trade enemies compared to a non-true form Amaterasu, who only has 7,686 DPS, which is only a 356 difference, which isn't all that big. Entangled Wooden Horse Javelins is based on the Trojan Horse. Javelins can only target zombies and metal enemies, along with having zombie killer. They also have a 100% chance to slow these traits for 11.2 seconds and enemy cats for 9.33 seconds long, along with knocking them back. They also have 326,400 health against cats. If one were to look at their stats, they might look almost the same between the two forms, but there's one thing that makes the first form objectively better. This being the fact that Javelin's attack frequency is almost 3 seconds faster than the Trojan Fortress, and at max full treasures gives Javelin a 95% upkeep for their slow compared to Trojan Fortress's 77% slow upkeep. However, since they can only target a few select enemy types, this immediately limits when you can use them. However, the niche they can provide is very good, being able to do some great damage and outrange all zombie enemies besides Zamel, Inomusha, and Xeonal. Also, since the upkeep for their slow is 95%, this usually means that by the time the zombie enemy loses its slow status, they get slowed literally half a second later. In terms of fighting metal enemies, they lose only like a small little bit of points since they don't have a chance to critical hit. However, the utility that the javelins can provide against metal enemies is just as great. While metal enemies are very niche in themselves, they can easily push hard if you can't status them. Javelins here excels at dealing with every metal enemy in the game, and being a great answer against Sir Metal Seal, who is notorious for being the most difficult metal enemy to face in the game. Karasu Tengu 1010 is the VIP Uber for the Airbusters. Quick spoiler alert, but there isn't a VIP counterpart for the Red Busters or any other Buster set. 1010 deals massive damage against floating enemies and cats. She deals 183,600 damage against floating enemies and 137,700 damage against cats. She also has a 50% chance to freeze for 3.6 seconds against floating enemies and cats for 3 seconds, and has 122,400 health against cats. 1010, being the only other Airbuster exclusive Uber in the set, I'm gonna compare her second form 1010 Solution to a true form REI, both untalented and talented. REI is much tankier against floating enemies than 1010 due to her insane resistibility, having 340,000 health before talents against floating. However, she deals less damage against floating, only dealing 136,000 damage against floating enemies compared to 1010's 183,600 damage. 1010's DPS is quite literally the highest DPS possible in the game when fighting floating enemies, if you don't include a strengthened Balrog, but he alone just straight up has the highest generalist DPS in the game anyways, having 41,727.28 DPS against floating enemies. REI, when talented, has 29,140 DPS, which is still one of the highest in the game, but is still only 3/4 the DPS of 1010. Also, after talents, REI still doesn't deal more damage. 1010 even has 60 more range, is cheaper, and 12 points faster. On the range point, while it doesn't allow 1010 to outrange any specific enemy that REI can't, the extra range keeps her at a safer distance. One more thing I want to note is that her high speed, DPS, and range makes her a very unique ranged rusher unit. Tatsuyume Mikon is the VIP Uber of Uberfest. Unlike other Uberfest exclusive Ubers, the first form isn't like a pocket version where it's cheaper. This causes the first form to be completely useless since Geisha Mikon just has better stats for the same price. Mikon has a standing range of 500 and has an LD of 400 to 800. She deals 32,300 damage with a 50% chance to land a critical hit and is immune to waves. Her LD piercing is pretty high compared to most other LD Ubers. Her blind spot of 400 is pretty big, as if a small push happens then she can't target those enemies. She also has a pretty long attack frequency. To compare her to another critical hitting LD unit, Hayabusa, she has a higher base attack, a higher critical chance, and a longer LD range. Where Hayabusa beats her in stats is that Hayabusa is tankier, faster, cheaper, attacks more often, recharges faster, and can reposition himself more often due to his higher knockback count of 7. In terms of strictly dealing critical hits, Mikon is better, but that big blind spot can be a huge liability if she isn't adequately protected. Natsumi Kan is a variant of Geisha Mikon that was available during the first anniversary gacha. Her role is completely different from her Uberfest counterpart. She goes from a critical attacker to a sniper. She has a multi-hit where her first hit lands after 1.7 seconds for 1,700 damage and her second after 3.53 seconds for 34,000 damage. She has a 100% chance to weaken every fruit treasure traded enemy she hits for 3.6 seconds and 3 seconds if they are a fruitless trait to 1% of their attack power, similar in vein to Professor Cat Jobs. She has a standing range of 480 with an LD range of 400 to 3000. Her second hit is the main damage dealer, so some enemies have a chance to slip by if they aren't stalled. Also, her attack frequency would quite literally be the second highest in the game, having an attack frequency of 38 seconds. Only outmatched by Green Shell with almost 4.5 minutes, and even beats Cat God by almost a second. Her cost is also rather high, costing 5,908 yen to send out. One last thing, her recharge rate would almost be the length of most Luga's recharge rates, that being almost 5.5 minutes, and it isn't like she's the tankiest unit either. All of this culminates into a unit who could easily deal some chip damage against enemies that slowly fled into the battlefield, but she should never be used as an attacker for an ungodly long attack frequency and Luga length recharge. Kataro Cat and Nizumi Ototo Cat are the only PC exclusive collab uber rares in this game. This unit was a part of the Gigigi no Kataro collaboration event. This unit is a variant of Baby Cat. These units have a 100% chance to create a level 3 wave, have a zombie killer, and an unknown chance to knock back floating and zombie enemies. However, if I have to guess, it would be a 30% chance since Baby Cat has a 30% chance to knock back. I will be comparing them to another collaboration unit that also is a variant of Baby Cat, that being Shinji Cat. These two units have almost the exact same stats as they both deal the same amount of damage, have the same amount of health, same recharge, and both share a 240 range. The only stat difference is the wave level and their targets being a bit different. Kataro targets floating and zombies, whereas Shinji targets black and metal. Shinji is also cheaper. Shinji's targets of black and metal are rather situational, however, as once you get Quizmaster Cat, the knockback against metal enemies is pointless, and black enemies are easily knocked back by most attacks anyways. Due to most floating enemies dealing a small amount of damage and zombies having lower ranges, landing hits and knocking them back can be pretty useful, especially after a zombie is burrowed. I think Kataro and Nizumi Ototo Cat are the better baby variant because the traits that they can target are both better than what Shinji can target. Cats in the Cradle still swamps them both in terms of everything outside of their niches, however. This has been part 2 of the short analysis of the Battle Cats PC exclusive uber rares. Out of the 8 that I've discussed, which is your favorite? If you want to add something about the unit on a pro or a con I missed, add it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, why not give it a like and maybe even subscribe if you enjoy the content on this channel. Anyways, have a wonderful day everyone.